I say that with somewhat of a rebellious tone. I can't stand if I hear staff or our customers say, "There's too many kids here. There's too many women here. There's too many baby boomers here." We're taking everybody.
Yeah.
We want everyone to enjoy the brand for what it is, enjoy the culture. It's inclusive, and enjoy the vibe.
Welcome to the Founder's Story podcast, where we learn from entrepreneurs about their journey from their first inspiration to their first employee and even the steps they took to become the powerhouses they are today. Welcome back to another episode, everyone. My name is Rick Porter. I am your host, and today I am joined by Paul Wengender of Greater Good. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
I am actually really excited to hear this story. I feel like we've been so close to your facility that we've kind of seen you guys from the very beginning. We're not shy here to say that we are beer lovers here at Cinch IT, and so the guys have had many of outings there. And we were talking before the show. I'm also a soccer coach, and what I love best is my kids actually would play over at Bancroft. Indoor in the winters, and we would actually come over as families, and my kids would destroy your place playing video games and throwing Jenga blocks everywhere while the parents had a good time.
It's you guys. Okay.
We are those ones. I'm sorry. So I'm actually really excited to hear this story today. So why don't we start from the very beginning and maybe even, pre-founding of Greater Good, and tell us a little bit about what got you into the industry and made you wanted to start this company.
So it's a path that starts with research-based drug discovery, and to date finds me in the brewing industry. And it might not seem linear when I describe it that way, but I have university training in research-based drug discovery at the lab bench, where I was in early drug discovery running fermenters and building labs around genetic engineering of microorganisms, and then manipulating them into larger fermentation environments to help aid drug discovery. And in 2006, while I was here in town leading a company and a team at Blue Sky Biotech, where we did contract fermentation for companies like Pfizer, Merck, Novartis, even Moderna in the early days. I was brewing at home as a home brewer, just toying around with yeast there as we were using it for manufacturing purposes at Blue Sky. And at a certain point, I had engaged outside equity firm who came in and eventually exited Blue Sky in 2014, and by 2015 had been toying around with my second passion, which is brewing, and became my primary passion. And I've really been focused on my home brewing experience to now higher ABV beers that are more sipping beers, beers you can enjoy around the campfire or on your back deck with your friends, kind of like a glass of wine. And so we've found a point of differentiation there with a product line with Greater Good beyond the pharmaceuticals. And if I may keep telling the story, in 2015 we started the company on a platform of 4 different beers from 9 to 12%. And at that time, I was still consulting in the pharmaceutical industry. So it wasn't as if I needed to start this brewing company. But we were brewing in Connecticut at as a guest on their pilot system, as I worked from home every Friday, but I actually was at this brewery, and some of the other employees at the brewery said, these beers are really different than what a lot of people are making right now. You should actually call a contract canner, and we'll do a live run of this. We'll do a 10-barrel run. The pilot fermenter is one barrel. So let's scale this thing up tenfold, can it. If you want, we'll do that for you, and then launch into a market. And so we did that. And again, we put a lot of passion and care and spared no expense on the recipes. But we really were asking the question at that time, which ended up being a year later in 2016, is this a hobby or a business?
Yeah.
And if it's a business, we're going to let the market teach us what we should do next. And if there's pull, we'll supply the pull. Like, we'll push if the market's willing to pull. And sure enough, in Western Massachusetts, we distributed the products. We sold every drop. The distributor said, we want more. And everything blossomed from there. And I was able to move back, to bring the story full circle, move back, because at that time we were brewing in Connecticut, moved back to Worcester. Ironically enough, when we looked all over the city, I found the facility on 55 Millbrook, which is less than a mile from where Blue Sky and now Lake Pharma, that's still the team from Blue Sky in many ways, is just down the street. So somehow the company came full circle back in Worcester to where we had started Blue Sky in 2003. So kind of an interesting
launch.
Yeah, circle and return to home here in Worcester.
Yeah, absolutely. So now Blue Sky Biotech, you sell it, and now the interesting part is, like you said, you were consulting, so you didn't need to do this, but I'm assuming, financially, you were in a position where you could say, okay, I can take this hobby and turn it into a business. Was it an easy decision? I mean, when you tell the story, it seems very natural, right? I was brewing, I was having fun, I was doing something about it.
Transferable skill set.
Exactly. And you're brewing something that somebody says, hey, I love it, and you instantly have that connection that says, let's bring this to market, and it all sounds very natural, and there was no hemming and hawing over the decision. Is that really how it went down, or was it a difficult decision to say, hey, let's go from hobby to business?
Well, that's an interesting question. It's a great question. I've never been asked that specifically, and I'll tell you, I had job offers from competing companies that competed with Blue Sky.
Yep.
And I couldn't take them for legal reasons.
Sure.
And so that's what sort of drove me into looking at the question of whether brewing is a hobby or a business. It really was a reaction to, well, what I love to do and what I'm good at, I can't actually do it right now.
Sure.
And I've signed those contracts.
Yep.
And those legal agreements that are common with founders. So did I miss it? I sure did. Yeah. And but that was the hard part.
Yeah.
The hard part was saying, okay, I'm not really part of this anymore. Sort of. So I serve on a board of Mass Biomedical Initiatives. The president and CEO is John Weaver, just down the street. And I still get to play a role in mentoring, guiding, and providing an incubator space for startup companies. And there are so many great companies now moving to Worcester in pharmaceutical, medical device R&D.
Yep.
So I still do play a role, so I'm not completely away from it.
Sure.
But that's the pain point for me, is not being a part of that fully every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you find the building. You do decide to take the step, right? You take the step into brewing. You find the building.
Right.
Yep. You're officially find this space on Millbrook Street, which at the time, everybody knows Millbrook Street is a real, pretty busy area right now. There's a lot of new restaurants and fast food chains and stuff like that have come through here. At the time, that didn't exist.
No.
So why in the world did you pick this? Was it a mill before? Is that what that building was before?
Yeah. So we had to have the Worcester Historical Society come over for a few beers and tour the place. And I say that because I initially, outside on the edifice says Brockelman Brothers. And if you look back and you search that a little bit, you would see that it was sort of a supermarket chain before there were supermarket terminology. They had 4 markets, I think, around Worcester. And so they were running this operation out of that building. and they built our portion of the building as a cold storage unit. And so we figured this out as we were cutting into the floors, because there was a layer of cement that was 4 to 6 inches deep, and then ancient styrofoam. The first form of styrofoam ever invented, maybe. I don't know. And then more cement. So this foundation was 18 inches deep, and so we were trying to build our drains and stuff. But we looked at that building first, actually, in fall of 2016. And then we looked at 30 more places around Worcester before we came back to that building and said, we can make this work. And we're really happy with it, especially because we have parking.
Yeah.
And as you said, there wasn't much going on there. I still say to this day, when people ask me where the brewery is, I ask them if they know where Chick-fil-A is.
Yeah.
So then, okay, yeah, I know where that is. Yeah. So it has come up around us a little bit, and that's nice to see.
Yeah.
You nice to see a cluster of businesses that are open after 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the interesting parts is, so we've had brewers on this show before, and we've talked to many of them in business and stuff like that. And one of the common themes we hear is that they get into a space and they didn't project as much growth, right? And so they outgrow those spaces very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. And I think you guys, I don't want to speak for you, but say you guys chose a building that was large enough to handle your growth for a period of time. I'm starting to see you guys have like outdoor, starting to actually expand and have some of the tanks outside now, if I'm using that term correctly. But tell us about the space and sizing of it, and was that at the forefront of your mind when you were choosing that space?
Well, it's going to sound weird, but at the time we felt like there was a lot of saturation in the market in 2015, 2016, which has only grown impressively from there. There were maybe 4,000 breweries at the time, and we felt we probably had the capital to make a little, sell a little, make a little, and find a little space to do it.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I thought, well, there are 95% of the beer made in America is made by all these little breweries, and they're cool, local, and we still want to be that, but excuse me, I want to take this idea and drive into the middle of the market, not stay in the small local mom and pop as much as stay local, but grow a distribution footprint and also volume out of our place. So in alignment with the business plan, to your point, we looked at this building for scalability downstream, and in fact, we started in 7,000 square feet, and now we're in 16,000 square feet, and we may even take more of the building if we can.
Yeah.
So we would love to get up to about 30,000 square feet as we build our footprint, manufacturing footprint, and we're about at max right now. So we moved into New Hampshire, and that kind of pushed us to a level of we can't really grow much more without building our manufacturing footprint here in Worcester. And so we are looking around, and it's tough to find space. But so we're looking at efficiencies and also elements of productivity. And one of them is, luckily, we have a great landlord, and he allowed us to put a concrete pad in the parking lot and put a silo on it, and that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
So that drops your grain prices by 30 to 45%.
Wow.
If a truck can pull up and just load your silo with the grain you use, and typically that'll be grain we use for our IPAs, which is about 80% of our revenue stream.
And at the end of the day, it looks cool too.
It is going to be cool. Yeah, so we haven't put any art on it yet, but we made sure we got a black one to go with the new building paint.
Yeah, it does, because you guys have a nice outdoor patio as well, and when the weather's nice, you're able to sit outside, and I know that you guys have music and entertainment and stuff like that out there, so it's weird to say, but it adds to the ambiance of everything that's going on outside, and I think it's a great addition before our work.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
All right, so we're in the space. You get the space. You start construction. You told us a little bit about what construction looks like, putting the drainage and the flooring and stuff like that. You guys have I'll use the word, you have a unique culture. Like I said, I talked about the fact that we bring families in there, and you guys are set up where the kids can come in and there's a place for the kids to socialize and stuff like that. Well, the parents do as well. The culture, was it very intentional? Did you guys set it up like that on purpose, or was that just an evolution?
100% deliberate. We're in an industry that is and would continue to be what I would consider through a disruptive democratization. So you're still seeing a conversion of beer drinkers from large commercial beer to microbrewed craft beer.
Yep.
And what we never want to see is a room full of 40-year-old bearded men in our brewery, and
in flannel and
yeah. And there's nothing wrong. We want those guys. We want those guys as much as everybody else. That was sort of I say that with somewhat of a rebellious tone. I can't stand if I hear staff or our customers say, "There's too many kids here. There's too many women here. There's too many baby boomers here." We're taking everybody.
Yeah.
We want everyone to enjoy the brand for what it is, enjoy the culture. It's inclusive, and enjoy the vibes. So, yeah, kids, especially if parents have a few beers,
we watch our kids less.
There's a little more responsibility for the staff, and I appreciate them for wrapping their arms around our values and our culture, and being accepting of families and anybody else, and dogs, right? And so all of these things, we just, I'm not going to speak for any other brewery, but for us, we want everyone to come. We want everyone to come and visit and have a good time, and that's inside and outside. So you keep bringing the families. We have a kids menu too, so
yep.
it's awesome. Something for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And surrounding that culture is obviously some really great people, like you said. You have some great staff who embrace that culture and whatnot. Tell us a little bit about when you guys first opened to where you are today. How did you find the people that you brought aboard, and how did you kind of build that culture with those people?
Typically, it starts with someone who really enjoys the beer, who maybe wants to be a part of the movement, and the final question before we, I guess, would bring anyone on board is, do they fit the culture? And I know that sounds cliche, but it's really the way it goes. As you know, as most of us know that have been running companies or building companies, or a teammate inside of a larger company, most companies will hire you for what you know, but fire you for who you are.
Sure.
Right? So at the end of the day, we want to make sure the second part is well prosecuted and thought about. And at the end of the day, we're making sure we hire people who, there are great people we won't hire because we just don't feel like they're going to fit the culture and rally around the brand and be passionate, and all those things matter. And then, of course, maybe they don't know a lot about craft beer. We've had some employees that are still some of our best employees who didn't really know much about it, but they love the team and they're willing to learn, and most of all, they fit the culture. So we've had a really fun experience and also challenging experience finding the right people. A lot of the resumes come to us, but usually it's someone we met. A lot of times it's customers, guests that come in, or it's brand enthusiasts who are like, maybe they were working for a different company, said, I really love what you guys are doing. I'd love to be a part of it. I see that you're hiring for this. And we've built a positive brand, and that equity brings people in to try and join the team.
Absolutely. Now, you had a passion for brewing. Are you still involved in the day-to-day brewing every day, or have you handed that off to others at this point? I
don't have my hands on the brewing. what I touch now is more the recipe development. Maybe it starts with, hey, we should be thinking about this style. Here's a recipe we did before. How do we tweak it? And how do we name it? It's important.
Yeah.
And we've got a great set of brewers. We have a kind of a three-headed monster: Meredith McNamara, Pat Fahey, and Jake Pelletier, and they all come from different areas. So I'm involved in the creative process with them and others. We'll bring the marketing and sales people in. We'll bring the hardcore back of the house, the brewing operation. We'll all put our heads together, but that's really my role now, is to facilitate those discussions as much as also play a role in where we take the next style, because we do have an emphasis on R&D, and we'd rather cannibalize our own products before someone else does. So that's part of our ethos, and that's where I probably play the major role in the development of the beers and the execution.
Sure. Now, I'll let this one kind of plant the seed now. At the end of this, I'm going to ask what the next recipe is, if there's anything on the horizon. You don't have to answer that now.
Okay.
But related to that question, as you guys get open and things are propelling forward, is there any one, I'll use the word recipe, is there any one recipe or a beer or something that happened over the course of your time that really helped you guys take off? Or was it just slow growth the entire time?
The first beer we ever made and went to market with was a Belgian Saison that was dry hopped in a New England IPA dry hopping technique, using a hazy yeast that happened to be a Belgian style yeast. And the reason that I bring this up is it was the first beer. We called it an Imperial Saison, and it sold okay. And we're very proud of that beer, but not so proud that we wouldn't let the market teach us something. And what the market said is, in our mind, you got to change this name to something else, or we're not going to buy it.
Okay.
It's the same beer, and now it's called a Belgian-inspired IPA. And it sells 10 times more than it did when we first brewed it. Now, that could be also the geographic reach that we have. And I hope I'm answering your question. Sure. But the overarching message to answer the question is, the market's going to tell us what we need to make next.
Yeah.
And in some ways, we will do R&D, and we will make beers that we love that the rest of the world doesn't. And if there's a brewery out there that doesn't do that, I would be surprised. Because, you have your passions, and you're like, oh, I love this beer. I want to make it for me, and I hope everyone else likes it too. But in general, we're going to continue to diversify our IPA lineup. And I think in some ways, like, we do a 5-hop East Coast, West Coast IPA, which is fantastic, but it's not as popular as, say, Pulp Daddy.
Yep.
And to finish off the answer to the question, when we came out with Pulp, which the acronym for that is Paul's Ultimate Lupulin Protocol. I don't know if people know that.
I did not know that.
It's an acronym, and it also it's a double entendre because of its connotation to juice, right? And a New England style IPA. And when we made that product, which was our 6th beer, and it's at 8%, so we had this slogan in mind: 8 is the new 5. For session beers, right? Because all these 5% beers, we're going to do an 8% beer, and that's the lowest we're going to go. And Pulp, when it hit the market as a double IPA, an Imperial IPA, really put us on the map, got people talking about our product. It's more center of the bell curve than, say, our 12% IPA, which is Greylock, or our 11% Imperial Milk Porter, Goodnight Moon. However, it actually had this complementary effect to those brands as well. It made our brand more visible. out on the shelves or at restaurants. And that was probably the tipping point, Pulp, for the growth of the company. We really started to radiate at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if there's any one beer that people would mention, that's the one that everybody seems to know and love and things like that. And for people like myself,
Pulp Daddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Pulp Daddy, exactly. And that's kind of your entrance into trying everything else that's there, which makes perfect sense. Now, you mentioned earlier that you've gone into New Hampshire. Now, are we talking about from a distribution standpoint or physical locations?
Distribution right now.
Okay.
And we were looking at sites in between New Hampshire, between Nashua and Manchester.
Okay.
Which we would love to be in. The market is just too hot for that type of real estate right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what markets are you guys in general right now, and how quickly has that grown?
So from 2016 to 2018 and just into the beginning of 2019, we had finally completed the puzzle of Massachusetts from Pittsfield to Provincetown. And then beyond that, because we have investors in Eastern PA and Western New York, we have a small amount of beer being distributed there.
Okay.
And Rhode Island and New Hampshire.
Got it. Now, as you look ahead into the future, is there new markets that you already have planned that you know you want to get into?
Yeah, we look at Connecticut as this massive market that we would love to be in, but we want to serve it the best way that we can and do it the right way.
Sure.
So that would be a very big undertaking for us. We still don't feel we've finished or in any way gotten to any sort of plateau in Massachusetts. So we're being patient and careful, and I guess Connecticut would be awesome.
Sure.
It'd be great because our neighbors to the south, just a couple of miles, and where I live, it's 5 miles away. So that would be an obvious next step.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. Now, when we talk about distribution, are we mostly talking about into package stores and things like that? Or are we talking about drafts in restaurants, or a combination of the two?
From a strategic standpoint, we found ourselves in a position where our highest productivity and efficiency from a labor and equipment standpoint for the first 3 or 4 years of the company pre-COVID was to focus on packaged beer. Mm-hmm. Packaged beer that goes to supermarkets and craft beer outlets, those types of accounts for off-prem consumption. And so, as the story goes, 92% of our production up to the end of 2019 was cans of beer, either sold at our tap room, out the door to go, or at package stores. And so only 8% draft in restaurants. It wasn't part of our it wasn't a focal point of our strategy.
Sure.
Now, at the end of 2019, we had a feeling, and that was also, again, we were listening to our distribution partners who said, if we find a way to scale Pulp Daddy, for instance, and maybe a few of the other styles, we could take this beer into a lot of these draft accounts. I think the world is ready, as we talked, everything's gravitating to this double IPA center of the bell curve. Pulp Daddy is a worthy competitor. It won Mass Brew Bros 2019 blind IPA taste test out of a field of 64. So the distributors were ready to take this thing, and then COVID hit, right? So we had this strategy to go from 92% can to 8% draft to 80-20, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it was actually a pretty massive shift in how we do business.
Absolutely.
Everything from the frontline sales and marketing all the way back to the production and packaging. And so that particular strategy and the tactical underpinnings had been put on hold.
Sure.
So we're super excited to start that up again. And we're right now, out there trying to win the hearts and minds of the purchasing agents at different restaurants and become more accessible with your meal out at a really nice restaurant.
Yep, I love it, and I agree. The to go has always been huge for you guys. Whether that's I've been out at a pizza place that used to be next door, and they're everybody's got cans of your beer, or I see it in homes and parties and stuff like that. So the cans are definitely picking up, and it'd be nice absolutely to see the drafts at more and more locations. Heading into Connecticut definitely sounds like it would be a big undertaking, but I guess almost the next logical step, right?
Sure, yeah.
For you guys, that's
be
fantastic.
exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. No small feat, I'm sure. The building that you guys are currently in, it sounds like you guys are reaching near capacity and stuff like that. Do you guys have any creative solutions on, getting into when you're getting into drafts and expanding and stuff like that? Do you guys continue to see yourself putting more and more of the outdoor things in place, or is it going to be potential expansions into new territories or new areas and buildings? All of the above.
So the question is,
yeah,
what are our growth
from a production standpoint?
Okay.
Do you guys have plans in place to allow you to be able to produce, to go into new draft systems in Connecticut and things like that?
Yes. Well, it is public that we work together with Spencer Brewing in Spencer, and a fair amount of our variable production capacity sits there, and then another component of variable production capacity sits at a place called Brewmasters in Williamsburg, Massachusetts. So we use these two contract brewing facilities as vehicles to be able to support ebb and flow and demand.
Makes sense.
And we are brewing full time with Spencer now because demand is beyond what we can do in Worcester.
Got it.
Yeah, and then as I mentioned, we are seeking some space out there, and quite frankly, we're looking in this massive geographic triangle from Hartford to Cape Cod to Concord, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed, maybe you wouldn't be, at how little inventory for space there is to produce anything.
Yeah.
So if anybody's out there listening and has space that has high ceilings, decent parking lot, public water and public sewer, let me know.
I love it. Yeah, and I love how specific, right? The high ceilings, because we've talked to people before that said in your space it's not just square footage, it's also height, because there's a lot in your industry that you can do with the height piece, which is fantastic. All right, so I promised you I was going to ask that recipe question. When we come to the R&D, what are we talking about? Peanut butter and jelly beer here. Do you guys have any plans for the future as far as recipes in the R&D side that you can and are willing to share? I'm curious what you guys are up to.
Well, there's a couple different areas now that we've grown, and we've grown from 160,000 units to 7 million units in 5 years. And with that growth, we've also diversified. So one of the diversifications is seltzer.
Yeah. And
we're making an 8% seltzer. It just came out called Pulpy Dreams. And again, we stay on brand. It's 8%. It's like a craft cocktail. So those are areas where we are looking at different ways to package it, and also different styles. There's probably as much going on in that small segment of our business in terms of R&D than there is on the beer side. And on the beer side, we currently have a second DBA, which sells Sole Purpose, and we're playing around with a lot of sour recipes. But I think, we're going to stay the course on varying hop profiles on our IPAs, and we've done a very nice job with bringing in sought-after hops that worldwide are in short supply. Nelson is one, Galaxy is another, and we're making variants to Pulp Daddy, a Galaxy Pulp Daddy, a Nelson Pulp Daddy, basically have the base recipe and the same grain bill and a different dry hop profile with a new and interesting hop. So we kind of drive that novelty.
Yeah.
At the same time, we want to continue to do larger ABV beers. So for instance, Woo, which has met the market in the last couple of months with great success. It's our top, one of our top 5 sellers already, at 10%. And those are the types of beers you can look forward to from us, from the greater good side. And then on the seltzer side, just look forward to some more flavors and some different packaging.
Yeah, I love that. And fun fact for our listeners who have been with us for a long time, one of our early on guests was Mike Covino from Niche Hospitality, who also is owner and co-founder of Nth Degree. And True North, right? And we had Tory and Mike on here, and they were kind of telling us their founder story and things like that. And they also have a podcast. If you guys have never heard it before, we'll share it in the comment notes as well. But they have a Nth Degree Podcast, and they have a tagline as they go through where every once in a while when they get really excited, they'll give out a big woo. And so as they were coming into film, Greg actually, our producer, actually went out and bought a bunch of the Woo beer and had it ready for them. Yep. So I love it. I thank you so much for sharing the founder story today. I really appreciate it. It's a great story.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I can't wait to see everything you guys got going on in the future as well.
Yeah, come on over.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And guys, we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Founder Story Podcast. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And don't forget to check out some of the other great stories.